Hello there, and welcome to this edition of Moms with a Mic. We've got the holiday season around the corner, and we're going to be talking about how to keep your stress in check. And we're also going to do some chatting about some fun and easy family recipes for the kids. So thank you so much for joining us. I want to go ahead and bring on my wonderful moms who are going to be joining us for this chat. First, I'll welcome Kenerly Wright, who is owner of Kid Create Studios and a mom of two. Kenerly, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And then I want to go ahead and welcome a fellow mom and licensed marriage and family therapist with Wellspring Counseling, Monica Snyder, who's going to help us navigate this really fun, but also kind of a hectic time. Right, ladies?
Yep. Totally agree.
Okay. So first off, I can't believe we're here. I can't believe Thanksgiving is next week. And then we know, Christmas, Hanukkah, the big holidays steal the show right after that. What's on your minds right now? And, are you concerned about maybe what's maybe the number one cause of stress? Kenerly, I'll ask you first when it comes to the holiday season.
Well, I have two small kiddos. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. They are very new to the holidays, and as they grow up, they're learning more and more about the holidays. So for us, it's always about making sure we understand the importance of the holidays. Like, it's not just about, gifts for Christmas or candy for Halloween. Or just the food for Thanksgiving. Really is about family time and understanding significance of those holidays. We also want to make sure we take it one day at a time, because as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, we were just at a tree lighting ceremony this past weekend at the Gulfstream Park. So it's just a lot of activities at once, but also making sure we just take it one day at a time.
Thank you, Kenerly. And yeah, I love those activities too. But Monica, what happens to me a lot is I over schedule. And I know you've told me before, you give me the wisdom that, really you got to look at that realistically, right? You can't do everything. So give us some wisdom about that.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard thing is that there's always a ton of different activities that we can do during the holiday season. But then we start to get stressed out, right? We have too many parties or too many activities. I've got to make all these cookies. I've got to wrap all these presents. And then we miss the holidays actually as a whole. And so it's really important. Even this week, you asked, what's on your minds? And I'm already starting to look at the next 6 or so weeks and notice, okay, what can we realistically attend? What is going to actually be enjoyable for our family versus I want to go, but maybe my husband doesn't want to go and it's going to cause a fight. Starting to buy presents already and wrap so that Christmas Eve is not a crazy night, and all of those different things. And so if we start looking now at what's coming up, make a plan as a family, sit down with a significant other, your kids, things like that, it's going to allow for your holidays to be more relaxed. And it's easier to say no to those things that actually maybe don't matter or will cause stress, and make the holiday season just not as enjoyable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's wise. Kenerly, your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree with Monica more. Like, definitely planning ahead. Recently, I just stepped into Michael's to get something for my child. She had a project due at school, and I noticed that everything was 40% off for Christmas. And I was like, you know what? Now is the time. I'm not going to wait until 2 weeks before Christmas or the beginning of December or right after Thanksgiving when everyone is trying to get their holiday supplies, holiday shopping in. I'm going to do it right now. And also I'm going to save money doing it. So I went ahead and made the decision, just start shopping. Although my husband may not agree and understand why are we buying Christmas things right after Halloween, but it made me feel so relieved. I was like, this is one thing off my list. And I would recommend every mom to do that. Just really try to plan ahead, because it's just going to make the rest of the holiday season run so much more smoothly.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Planning, do it now, right? Because I think, you guys, my biggest thing is I feel like, there's so much time, and there's really not. There's a set amount of weekends, a set amount of times, and I think also I tend to, maybe I'll talk to a fellow mom and say, yeah, we should go do, some really fun activity, and I don't know when we're going to do that. And then it ends up not happening because you just don't have enough days on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And I find, like, as I said, shopping ahead, I know there's a lot of different activities. Recently, the Brightline just launched their Polar Express train for the holiday season. If you shop early and get those tickets early, you actually get a better price on them versus waiting weeks before or even days before. You may not have the availability. So really, it's helping us plan and helping our pockets too. So it's only beneficial to have those planned out in advance.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also the cool thing or the helpful thing is that when we're not overscheduling, then we actually have time for our friends and family for things that do pop up. So maybe that play day at the park that our friend really could use a listening ear, and we've overscheduled our time. And so we're like, we'd love to do it, but we just don't have that time. Whereas if we're able to balance and set realistic weeks, then there is some wiggle room for those last minute things that might actually be necessary because of just normal stress and grief during the holidays.
And Monica, let's talk some more about that, about setting realistic expectations, whether it's with our time, but also with family members. We're going to be spending time around dinner tables. There are differing opinions, differing politics. How can we navigate that?
So I think there's a couple things about expectations that come in here. And so social media, the internet has allowed for us to have these really idealistic expectations for holidays, what the family should look like sitting around the table, or how we should be talking and things like that, what our table settings should be. And truthfully, while that's really nice, and if you can pull it off, more power to you. So, starting with, first of all, just kind of setting those realistic expectations. Who can help you cook if you're hosting, or what can you bring if you're visiting is super helpful. Do you have to have china, or can you use plastic or paper that might look like china that's easy to throw away and clean up afterwards, things like that. Noticing what your expectations are. So maybe you do really want that family photo, or you want a specific, place setting to look the right way or something like that. And so saying that to people, hey, can we make sure we make time for this? Or, hey, can you help make sure that this looks this way? Putting those expectations out there is going to be super helpful, for us also to be able to meet those. But when you get back to those relationship things, I think that the hard thing is that in society, we get so triggered by people and what they're saying instead of being able to stop and listen. And so sometimes people start a conversation and we already have an assumption on what they're going to say and where they're going and what we need to respond. Whereas sometimes if we just stop and listen and we just understand where they're coming from, we're going to see that either it's okay to disagree. And because we were able to stay calm and we were able to listen through it, we actually can have an enjoyable conversation in agreeing to disagree. Or maybe we just need to stop and just be present. And so we need to be noticing our own feelings, our own, we would call them somatic reactions. So how's your body feeling? Is it feeling tense and angry? And if so, maybe it's just a time to politely excuse yourself to go to the bathroom, take a couple of deep breaths, be thoughtful about where your thinking patterns are. And is this relationship worth a fight? Or is this somebody that you really do love and care about, and you really are okay to forgive maybe the judgmental behavior they're coming in with, or the statement they made? We had it happen recently where a family member said something to another family member and it was totally innocent, but the other family member took offense to it. And, being able to stop and talk and say, hey, that really hurt my feelings, and let them explain and hear that. But the other thing is too, as we stop and listen and we spend more time listening and asking questions, so tell me a little bit more about that, or how did you get to that opinion? Or what do you think about that? Once again, it builds a different world than what we've been living in the last couple of years, where we're able to be thoughtful and understanding versus just jumping in with our own opinions or being opinionated. When we do equine therapy, this is a good example. One of the things that we teach is pressure and release. And so if somebody's putting pressure in a relationship, so they're intense, they're talking about something that maybe I don't want to hear, things like that, and I come in with that same intensity, we're just going to keep doing this, right? And that's going to get things out of control. Whereas if I can come in and not kind of increase pressure or intensity in the conversation, there's a very high likelihood that conversation will actually go in a better direction. Does that make sense?
So kind of like de-escalating instead of escalating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, I think knowing when to just kind of step aside, not to, you don't have to stay there and like sit there and keep stewing,
Yes.
right? Kenerly, what's your take on this? Do you have any experience with this?
Thankfully we've been lucky enough to not really have any everybody in our family kind of aligns the same way when it comes to politics and things, but nevertheless I like a lot of what Monica was saying. I think more importantly you have to really just think about why you're there, and it's family time, and is now the time or the place, and not to mention the kids are around. So what kind of example are we setting for them? What are we showing them, the way we're speaking to each other, or how are we engaging? In my family, we typically, for Thanksgiving, after we have our big meal, the end of the night, the kids are usually in front of a movie, and after the movie they go to bed, and then the family, the adults, we bring out the games and we have our own little game night. And that's when we can really engage in those older adult conversations, that if things do get intense or heated, the kids are in bed, they're asleep, they're kind of away, and we'll save that for that time. But really just to keep it really lighthearted and remember why we're all there and the purpose of that, for sure.
And wrapping back around to that, bringing gratitude for specifically into Thanksgiving is super helpful, right? Because when we're talking about things we're thankful for and we're verbalizing it, not just noticing it inside, it actually also allows for safety in relationships. So if I come in and I'm like, man, this is a beautiful place setting, or wow, look at that turkey that you did, or what a beautiful pie, and I'm giving praise, or I'm saying, man, I'm so thankful for X, Y, and Z, then it actually affects the people around us too, right? And so they may have been coming in really supercharged because they were upset about something, or a conversation was starting to get triggered. But when we are able to kind of come in with some of those more positively focused things, it changes the environment. Julia, you brought up a good point, though, is that sometimes we do need to have those exit plans. And so noticing, you know what, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to go to the bathroom right now. Or, hey, can I help start clearing some of those place settings and things like that? Maybe you know who that trigger person is in the conversation. And so you will ask somebody that you trust, whether it's your significant other or another family member, just to say, hey, if you see something happening, can you just come and kind of help me walk away? Or can you help me by changing the subject? And, so there's so many different things that we can do to kind of de-escalate things when we're feeling stressed. But, going back to those positive things, when we talk about, just pausing before we speak to be thoughtful about phrasing things positively, talking in a positive setting versus a complaining setting. And then, like I said, noticing, what is worth forgiving? So is this really worth holding a grudge and being disgruntled and ruining the rest of the day? Or is it okay just to say, like, you know what, it did hurt. It's not pretending it didn't hurt. It's not pretending it didn't happen, but just saying, like, I'm just not going to carry it. Like, it's not even worth carrying. I'm going to focus on something else right now.
Yeah. Letting it go.
Yes. No, don't bring that song up. I'm just kidding.
Let it go. Yeah. And when you were talking about exit strategies, one thing that I literally have done with my husband is having a code word that I'm uncomfortable, or things are going bad, and we need to make our exit. And so that has helped me in the past, like setting that up ahead of time.
Absolutely.
I think being present for your family, a lot of what Monica said was giving a helping hand. Try to be more focused on, as you said, serving others and thinking about others. What do you need help with? How can I be a part of this, this Thanksgiving dinner or this Christmas? How can I make it easier for you? And the little goes a long way, especially if that other person is a parent and has kids involved. So anything that we can also do to help each other, it truly takes a village. It really does.
Absolutely.
So I think that's helpful.
It does. And we were talking about having this idealized vision of the holidays, when you see the commercials and people together and smiling and everything looks so perfect. But I mean, we know our families are not perfect. And I feel like, you tend to fall into old patterns and old habits when you get together with different generations, and even like, things that that maybe from your, your parents growing up, that maybe, isn't something in your own household now, but you go back and, sometimes like during the holidays, I feel like I'm not even an adult again. I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
Right. But I kind of, have to defer to my mom and in a loving and respectful way, of course. But then there's just so much that comes into it now. And with kids and, like you may have your own rules for your kids in your household. And then, at grandma's house, it's totally different. Man, it's kind of like walking a tightrope a little bit.
Mhm.
It is. And that's where those expectations come in, right? So even before the tensions start to build next week is even just noticing this week or early next week to say, hey, I'm going to just reach out. Like, once again, my mom's hosting Thanksgiving. All of my brothers are in town for the first time since COVID. I'm super excited. My nieces, my nephews, sister-in-laws, extended family. And, so if I were to say, go in and be like, I can just say to my mom now, like, hey, I just want to let you know, this is something that I need, or this is how I'd like this to be handled. And just give her that now before the tensions are high. Because if I go in and I do that, even the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, when she's scrambling to get some of those last minute details done, that can be a trigger for her. And it may normally not be a trigger, but because she's carrying stress, now she's triggered. And that does go into our self-care, right? And so we have to be drinking water and eating healthy, getting enough. We were talking about sleep a little while ago. So getting enough sleep, making sure we're exercising, journaling out the things that, maybe are stuck in our head and we just need to get out on paper. Even seeking counseling, I know that I'm a counselor, so of course I'm going to say that, but the truth of the matter is there's a lot of stress and grief that come into holidays that we don't even realize we're carrying. And so just being able to make an appointment with a counselor over these next couple of weeks and just say, hey, I just need to come in, even just to do a checkup and just talk through stressors, just to have somebody that's neutral and outside of the family to process things, so that when you are with family, you're in a really super healthy place so that you can be present and you can be helpful and things like that. So absolutely.
Yeah. And man, it just trying to think of, I remember one year I heard from a coworker, man, I just got to get through the holidays. And I thought to myself, no, I don't want to think like that. This is right. Before we started this live chat, we were all talking about our kiddos and what a special time this is, at every stage of life. And, my hope, my prayer is I really want to enjoy this time. I don't want it to be overcome, with the stress and the craziness of things.
Yeah. And that's those expectations. My family is going to be super different from each of your families, right? From my friends, from my extended family. What I choose to do over the holidays, how I celebrate, what events I go to, what cookie exchanges I do, what Christmas concerts, all of those. Like, my family may not be at every party because I know that we just don't do well on that many things, and so I think it's okay for us to just know and set that about ourselves so that we're protecting our kids, and our significant others and our families.
Yeah. And so decide now, what is your schedule going to be? But I love that too, right? So that you actually have time for pop-up things, the time in the margins. What do you think, Kenerly?
I think I 100% agree, making sure that we schedule our time out, not over promising, because then if you do that, sometimes you can under deliver and you can let those people that you care about you the most down, and you don't want to do that, especially your kids. Also, I find too with the kids, when you're planning in advance, they don't need to know all the details in advance, because if things fall through,
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
the disappointment. And I've done that before, and I've told my kids we're going to this place, and then whatever life happens and we can't make it, and now they're totally bummed, and I'm now trying to find a way to squeeze it in so that I'm not letting them down. Or so I think just allowing, like I said, taking it day by day, and not necessarily having to let the kids know on every single thing that you have planned. But it's great when you have it in your pocket, and if it's the couple days before and you're going to make it, and then you can really rejoice, and that way you don't have to hear about it every single day for 2 weeks leading up.
No, but that's true. I agree with that. Don't give out too much information.
Yeah. For sure.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about one of the just really fun things to do this holiday season, of course, and that's spending time in the kitchen with our kiddos. And so those fun and easy holiday recipes, which for me, bonus, what I'm learning as a mom, if you let them in on the cooking, they're more likely to eat what you're making.
Isn't it fun?
So Kenerly, let's start with you and one of your favorite things to make with your kiddos. Tell us about it.
We love to do pizza night. Pizza is something that we started doing, several years now. We've been doing it together, and it has just been so much fun. I noticed involving them, like you said, Julia, not only gets them excited about eating it, but also it's such a learning experience for them. They're learning what foods look like and taste like and feel like before they're actually cooked, which is so important to their development. They really enjoy being in the kitchen with me, and it just is a great way for us to spend time together in the kitchen, and we just have so much fun doing it.
Yeah, that looks so yummy. Really looking forward to trying that pizza. And then dessert too is great to make. And I know, Monica, you've got some yummy desserts that your family makes together. Tell us.
We do. We actually, so my kids are homeschooled. And so cooking is not just something fun that we do, but it's also part of our homeschool routine because they're learning fractions and they're learning about ingredients and what does baking soda and baking powder do. And that's one of the reasons we like desserts, because there's some, science in there. But we belong to a group, a cooking club called Radish Kids. And so this weekend, my daughter and I had a date morning. Her sister was out with her dad and we made donuts. And so we made apple cider donuts and it was just super delicious. We have both a large and a small mold baking. And then later that night, we actually made what Radish calls cauldron cakes, but they were just lava cakes. And so they got to learn a little bit about how the inside could be gooey, and we tested like if we overcooked it with the inside be gooey versus if we undercooked it. And so we love baking. It's super fun, and I would agree they eat so much more when you let them bake with you.
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. And lava cakes, yummy.
They were super good, I won't lie.
I was going to say, I can't underestimate the learning experience the kids are really getting out of it. I mean, as basic as colors and counting and how many pieces of pepperoni are we going to put in, and even fractions when we're come time to cutting the pizza. It's really is such a great learning experience for your kids. So please don't. A lot of the times I hear other moms might say, oh, it's too much of a mess, or I have to work around them. But you really should just embrace it and not think of it more as a chore. Think of it more as an opportunity to be with your kids and to interact with them and not be so concerned about the mess that they're making. It can always get cleaned up. It can always, if you have a dog, he's doing half the cleaning up anyway.
Great.
So
I totally agree.
Really invite them into the kitchen, because some of the times when we wait too long, then they're not interested. And now you're kind of fighting them to get into the kitchen, versus if you introduce them into the kitchen earlier, it just becomes more natural for them over time.
Absolutely. It's interesting because my kids started cooking, but they went through this little bit of a phase where they started to feel like they couldn't do it, or it was a lot of work. And so we actually started to watch MasterChef Junior with them to show them that there were kids their age. And it was amazing how even just watching a couple episodes and them realizing that kids their age could cook and they were totally able to do it took off. They love getting in the kitchen now and just really being able to experiment. And they'll come in and be like, I'll be in a meeting and they'll be like, can we make this? And I'm like, go for it. And they've made mistakes. Like one time my daughter put salt instead of sugar in, which you can imagine. So they were really salty, but then that was a really good, learning a lesson on learning to read ingredients and to read teaspoons versus cups and things like that. So I totally agree. It's such a good thing to introduce young, and it is a mess. It's so much extra work. Dinner takes twice as long to cook with them, but as they're developing more skills, they're actually able to start cooking some things on their own. And actually it's starting to save time and pay off, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, for me, especially if I'm by myself trying to watch the kids and cook at the same time is a challenge. So, and my son, I mean, he's only 4, but now it's so fun, and trying to get him to try new vegetables with like a green bean casserole. And so we made this the other night. This is my go-to Thanksgiving dish, and it was helpful because it's a dry run, because that's what I plan to bring to Marissa's house for Thanksgiving, my sister's house. And so it was really fun. Of course, he's stealing some bites there, and I'm constantly making him wash his hands over and over. And he doesn't quite get the concept of, if you put your hands in your mouth, you got to wash your hands again, but we're working on it. And yeah, it's really fun. And oh my goodness, totally made a mistake a few weeks ago. I mistook, powdered sugar. I thought it was flour, and it was powdered sugar, and it was a savory dish. It was a pot pie, and I served it to my kids and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law says, "Did you add sugar in this?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Why is it sweet?" I'm like, those carrots, they just, sometimes the carrots make things
so sweet.
No, it was totally powdered sugar. And it was whatever, they ate it, but I didn't think it was very edible. I had to throw it away, but now I know. And that's why you should label things in your kitchen. So.
I will give a suggestion to all those parents who are kind of nervous about bringing their kids in the kitchen. Prepping is really a great way. As before you invite them in, have everything set out so you're not running and grabbing and trying to get it in the middle of the cooking. If everything's already on the counter, they're just simply grabbing them and then pouring the ingredient in. That way you're more focused in on them, and they're not having too much time where your eyes aren't glued to what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think kids' knives too, because that was one of the things, like even when we first started cooking and teaching them to cut, was instead of giving them obviously the sharp chef knives, we started with kids' knives. And it was definitely more difficult for them to cut through certain items, but it gave us a little bit of ability to slow them down and to teach them safely how to use knives, versus just starting them really young with super sharp objects. But yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure to talk about this, and I just really appreciate your insights on just trying to to maintain our mental health going this. Any final thoughts from either of you? Go ahead.
As far as the recipes, for sure, I think I love the idea of the kids' knives. Parents, if you want to take a trip to the dollar store, there's really inexpensive kids or small sized tools that you can use to bring them to let them use. Helps them with their dexterity, helps them with their cutting skills, clipping skills, all those great things that's going to help them in school and in the long run. So make sure you embrace it, as well as the holidays too. It's such a fun time of year, and I'm glad Monica brought up that the COVID is not over, but at least we get to be back together in a safer environment with the family.
Yeah. And I would agree. I think, once again, like I said, we belong to Radish Kids. They come with little kid-friendly items that they can use to cook, and the recipe cards are super easy to read. And so it's just inviting your kids into the kitchen to start cooking cookies with you for Christmas season. That's such a fantastically fun tradition that you can start. But, once again, just going back to those mental health things is just really noticing yourself, noticing your expectations, noticing where you're hoping life will go, verbalizing expectations and needs, but also taking care of yourself, setting those boundaries and those self-care things. These weeks are going to go so fast. And so, just taking this week to do that is just tremendously helpful. But yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for your input and for sharing. Great to see a little bit into both of your families. And thank you. You're making me more excited about the holiday season. And I also want to thank our wonderful producer and fellow mom, Monica Galarza, who helps make this all possible. Monica, thanks so much. And ladies, Monica Snyder with Wellspring Counseling, and Kenerly Wright of Kid Create Studio. Yeah. Thank you both. And just look forward to sharing this and enjoying the holidays. Thank you so much, ladies. And thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Happy holidays.